Legal disclaimer time. The opinions shared on Priority Air are those of Rob Fair, Chris Voller, and whoever we conned into speaking with us this week. To be clear, they don't necessarily represent those of any organization you may associate with us, but they do represent honest conversation, a bit of humor, and a lot of heart. Enjoy the episode, you guys. Thanks for listening.
Chris and I both had an election for our day jobs, and we were both successful, so we still are employed. And here we are with Morgan K. And that's not just the letter K. It's actually his last name. It's not incognito. We're here with Morgan K. So no one knows who he is, apparently. Chris, go ahead and
Sure. I'm not sure how I topped that. It was so eloquent. But yes, as you've already said, today we're being joined by Morgan, who is a 16-year RCMP member, who's originally from Nova Scotia, now serving in our tactical training section after he's done postings in Athabasca, Leduc, Wetaskiwin, and Camrose, which is Alberta for those of you who aren't following your geography. On May the 6th, 2020, while posted in Wetaskiwin, Morgan responded to a violent mobile firearms incident at the end of Highway 2 near Leduc. During that confrontation, he was shot in the face and the hand. He returned fire, and he survived that incident that would later change his life and his career. After a year away from work, multiple surgeries, and a difficult battle with whether he would ever return to policing, Morgan successfully reintegrated, returned to full duties, and later began to help teach others through the reintegration program. Now in TTS, Morgan brings lived experience to the conversation about survival, recovery, resentment, leadership, and really what it means to come back after the worst day of your career. So thank you for joining us, Morgan.
Of course, happy to be here.
The one of the words that Chris used there was the resentment, and remind me if we don't talk about that. I want to come back to that because I don't think that's a totally unusual emotion for cops to feel, but I think it's a very important one that we talk about. That it's not necessarily the final emotion, right? It doesn't have to be, right? But it is a powerful one. So I want to come back. But thank you, Morgan, for joining us. And I think it's probably easiest if we just sort of let you, in your own words, sort of talk about a little bit about you. Like, we want to know before we'll get into the incident, obviously, but I want to hear a bit about you, whatever you want to talk about, family background, how you got into policing, your experience in that regard.
Sure. So like I was saying to Chris earlier, a bit of a family history with law enforcement. My grandfather did a bunch of time, retired as an inspector with Halifax Regional Police. So like the police of like major jurisdiction where I'm from. My actual hometown is Lawrencetown. So that's just outside of Halifax Regional's borders, but neighbors on it. And it was policed by the RCMP. My other uncle, so my grandfather was retired. I think he retired shortly after I was born. But kind of grew up with the stories and grew up talking about police stuff and always had an interest in it. And the bullshit stories that you're like, I don't know, is that a real story? Is that, is it just kind of flashed up to make it more entertaining? And now having been in policing, I'm like, no, those are 100% real stories, that there was no games there. My uncle was serving, I think he retired when I was about, I want to say 17 or 18. So we kind of grew up around him still serving, did a couple ride-alongs to see, a little bit of the day-to-day, and just always knew from when I was probably, 14, I was like, it's policing or it's nothing. And like it was that, or it was, I had no idea what I was going to do. Thought about the military, thought about, getting a trade. That's kind of a, common thing out there, get a trade and come out west type of deal. But the eggs were really in the basket of policing. I had reached out to Halifax Regional Police, which is where I originally wanted to do my service. And I was 18 years old. And the answer was a resounding, hey man, like, love that you're interested. That's great. We'd love to hear from you. But unless you're 25, got a degree, got some previous service, went to Holland College, something like that, like, thanks, but ain't happening. So don't even bother. RCMP was on their big hiring push around then, or towards the end of it anyways, like that 2008, 2009, kind of the tail end of the real big, like 2 troops a week situation that they were in.
That's when I got in.
Yeah, it's like just get swept in with the big group. And saw an ad on the bus, literally going to Dalhousie, that I was just taking a couple courses for a resume, basically, and saw the RCMP was recruiting, and I was like, oh, what the hell, why not? Like, what's the worst that happens? I'll put in for it. And
advertising works for the RCMP out there. Advertising works.
Yeah, exactly. So I said, well, I mean, worst case scenario, I at least see what the process looks like for a polygraph and interviews and, what they're looking for, because I'm sure the process is fairly similar. And all of a sudden they're like, hey, so yeah, we got you a troop date in 3 months and you're going to depot. And it's like, oh my God.
You're how old?
I'm 35 now. And so
at that time, sorry.
Oh, at the time I was 19 when I got in. So I left for depot. I got accepted when I was 19, left for depot like the month after I turned 20. So cool. Very, very young. Mm-hmm. Bit of a two-edged sword for sure, with the benefit of hindsight, that it really was double or nothing. And for that first post, it was nothing. It sucked. That was rough transition of, coming straight out of mom and dad's house, never been on my own, never, paid my own bills, never did anything. Like it was an absolute culture shock for sure. But it set me up to kind of where I am now. So it was certainly worth the pain, but there was a lot of it for those first few years for sure. Sure. And started out in Athabasca. We got our postings at depot and they said, yeah, you're going to Athabasca. I was like, where is Athabasca? That wasn't on my list. They give you the list and I'm putting like Banff and Jasper and Lake Louise and all these like real Gucci places. Like, this sounds nice. I'd like to work in the mountains, and not realizing, the lineup to get to those places. And off to Athabasca I went with a one-way ticket, and did almost 5 years there. Came down to Leduc. Originally was planning, I'm just going to use the RCMP as a resume builder. I'm going to get my couple years of service, and then I'm going to lateral, and I'm going to get out of here. Had the paperwork half filled out a couple times. EPS was in a big recruiting push. Halifax was recruiting again. And I was like, this is not for me out here. And we'll use this to get somewhere else. And kind of thought more of it towards the end of my time in Athabasca that, well, maybe I need to give it more of a chance than just one post. So I'll feel like a quitter if I leave after this. Got to give it a chance to be different scenery, different members, different bosses, different life. And came down to Leduc and met my now wife 6 or 7 months after I moved there, and I was like, oh, it's not all like Athabasca. They're not all small towns, and it's not all crusty old members that I work with. No offense to any of them if they ever watch this, but it was generational differences for sure. Sure. I'm 20, fresh out of depot, and the social media age and just the differences of kind of back when I was your age, that was hard for me to get over for sure. Not that I don't understand it, but at the time when you're in it, it was not the best. So most of my service was general duty, a couple assignments to GI, RPACT, CPVS. A bunch of that was after my shooting when I was coming back to work, but most of my career has been general duty.
And all in Alberta.
Yes. Yep. All in Alberta. Did one 30-day relief in Pangnirtung, which was probably the highlight of my career. Honestly, that was a very cool experience. Different world, and to be able to see it was quite good. So, but yeah, everything else, all Alberta.
Yeah. So. Cool. I like there's not that many that start at 20 years old anymore. It used to be probably when your grandpa got in, he was probably 19 or 20 when he started policing, and your uncle, like that used to be seemingly the typical norm. Mm-hmm. Not anymore, but I like those stories. I was pretty young. I was 22. Chris was probably 17 or something like that, I think.
I was 22, but I don't know that I would be arrested by punk ass young me. I don't think I would take that seriously.
It was, it would have been. I look at pictures of myself, and I'm like, I was a high school kid dressed up like a Halloween costume as a cop.
Is that your dad's uniform? Like, where did you get that? There's no way that's your uniform. Like, what are you doing?
It so much looks like that. So I understand it now. At the time, right, you're in the position, and you're like, wait a second, I'm a fully grown adult here. Like, and mind you, I'm still potentially not fully grown, but at some point I will be, I hope. But you feel, right. You feel like you're a fully grown adult who makes all the right decisions, and you know a lot of things, and you're wondering why all these people are looking at you sideways, like you're a kid. And then in retrospect, you look back at your own photos and you're like, oh, now I kind of understand it a little bit more. Yeah. At least that's my experience.
So can you describe like what type of police officer or yourself a little bit before May 6, 2020? So you've done these postings. We're all younger at any given point in our past, but like where would you introspectively look back and say, like, this is what I was like?
I mean, it's an interesting question because the last 5 years, or I guess 6 now, it has been such a massive shift that sometimes, even with the benefit of hindsight, it's difficult to really put them side by side because it is such a shift. But one thing I will say, and it took me a long time to realize it, that prior to my shooting, 100% was on the road to self-destruction, like no question. That I think I enjoyed policing. I still do. I think that I was not managing those compounding factors over my career. I wasn't managing them very well with the sleep and drinking and just being like, well, as long as I'm good enough to go to work, then I guess I'm good. And did that for many years. Was not healthy for sure. And that it was, I think metric for how well my life was going was like how well was work going. And as long as I could keep that kind of between the rails, then I guess life was good. But then looking back, and then after, having a break and everything, that realized that was not a good way to do things. That I took my job, I still do, took very seriously. I was and am a good cop, and I knew my stuff, and I wasn't reckless, but I wasn't scared of anything. And I guess my perspective on it was just that, well, if it's serving me well, if things are going well, then I'm just going to keep doing them this way because there's no reason to do them any different. And I guess we'll just do that until it doesn't work anymore, and then we'll reassess. So it was, I don't know. It's difficult to look back on it sometimes because it is so eye-openingly, is that a word? I'm not even sure if eye-openingly is a word. That
there's a hyphen in it.
Yeah, is there? Okay, well, there you go. So it's a bit difficult to really put it into words sometimes, but that would be the general gist of it. I was a hard worker. I like going to work. It's all I've ever known. I mean, I did, high school. I did a year of university. University's not for me. Get on the force at 20. And so my entire adult life, like almost the day, my entire adult life, this is all I've ever known. And there was really nothing to compare it to. And that's why I say that the whole first 5 years of my career, a bit of a double or nothing situation, because I got through it and I learned a lot, and it really shaped my career, my mentality moving forward. But it's the two-edged sword as well, because I only had one chance to kind of get it right because I had nothing else to compare it to. So
in terms of preparation for a shift, if you can break it down to, the actual preparation for a shift before the incident and after the incident, doing GD, if you're doing a similar job, did you approach it like we've all most of us have worked GD for some amount of time. I did mostly GD in my career. So worked with a lot of different people, a lot of different detachments, and some were very diligent. And this isn't a test, Morgan, right? Like however you did it. But there are some who were very specific. Every time their carbine was loaded exactly the same way. It was their duty bag was put in the same spot. They either, they didn't put it in their front seat because they needed a place to dive. What I'm talking about. There's people that approach it completely differently. People that check their car every single shift, and people who sort of don't ever. And there could be a gun under the seat because it hasn't been checked in a while, right? So for you. Back, first 5 years, and it's easy to get complacent, and I think most people do at some point, where you start out a depot and you're doing all those things, your mental checklist, and then sometimes that falls off. Where did you fall on that scale, sort of before and after the incident, and was there a difference?
I don't know that there is a big difference. There are certainly things that I prioritized over other things. I mean, especially now, general duty with body cams, and there's 65 different things that you have to check and sign into, and ATAC and all this stuff. And it's all great technology. It's all great tools. It's certainly not to disparage any of it, but it certainly does get to the point of where it's you just got to pick your couple things. That's these are actually important to me for these reasons. And it's not to say that the rest of it's not important, but I'm going to prioritize. For me, my guns were always a priority. That I was I will have a carbine with me, and it will be accessible, and I will have my MWS signed in so that people can know where I'm at. Am I super worried about my watch guard? I'd like it to be working. I don't want to get in trouble for it to not be, or if it's turned off, or I forget my mic or whatever. But that would be a lower priority than being able to defend myself in the moment of whatever it is that happens. So, super guilty of not properly searching the back seat, not having all the forms with me that I probably should have. Do I have a box of extra batteries for my flashlight? No. But there was certainly the tiered list of what I wouldn't leave the office without. And that was without a carbine or without having MWS signed in. Those were the two big things for me, that they needed to be working, and I'd switch cars if they weren't. That those would be the two big ones for sure. I always really liked the carbine. I always really liked shooting it. I think I was the second member in Leduc when I got there to get the training, because that was, I guess that'd have been 2015. So it's just starting to become a bit more widely available. It's still a waiting list of who gets to go and that type of thing. And I think there was only one other member in our office that had it when I went for my training. So took it very seriously. I was identified as someone who's interested in that type of thing, is a competent shooter and would benefit from it a lot. And so my whole career since then, that was a bit of a focal point for sure.
Mm-hmm. Chris, looked like you had something.
I did. So that's the kind of micro or macro. Can you give me, where were you with your mental health? Were you seeing a psychologist before? Were you look fit now? You look like you take care of yourself. Were you working out before? Because you made reference to I wasn't healthy. But health is such a spectrum, right? Our mental health is usually what police officers are actually talking about. But then there's our physical health that is intrinsically tied. So where were you prior to that?
So prior to physically very active, I went through depot, and I was 160 pounds and 6'1". So skinny as could be. Took a lot of shit for that over my life and my career. Is just the build at the time. Around 2017, 2018, I got sick and tired of it. I'm I'm going to start going to the gym again, and I'm going to go and I'm going to lift as much weight as I possibly can until I'm not skinny anymore and people leave me alone. It was literally got bullied into it. I'll 100% admit. So I was regularly exercising, but it was, it would be, again, like I'm sure you guys have heard the term like dirty bulk, uh, that it's not like I'm eating kale salad and drinking beet juice and with this like really specific workout routine. It was like I was eating McDonald's and like a heaping scoop of pre-workout before a night shift or in the middle of a night shift at 2 o'clock in the morning, and just getting it done however it had to be. Again, would I take that over being, sitting around doing nothing? Of course, but it wasn't the healthiest way to do it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It was also an overcompensation for the mental health part. I was seeing a psychologist and have been since, I think I started seeing him 2017 through VA, that I'd never even heard of Veterans Affairs until I came to Leduc. And there's some members that I started talking to, and we were talking about, some symptoms and the sleep and the stress and the eating and like not feeling good and that type of deal. And they recommended one in Edmonton that I started seeing, and I still see to this day. I see him next week, actually. So thankfully, for that part of my career and sense that I was seeing someone, which was a huge help. But I don't know that I was taking a lot of his advice. It was, oh, I see a psychologist and this makes me feel good. And this makes me feel like I'm doing the right thing. And I go 3 times a year, 4 times a year, whatever the case is. And I talk about whatever's going on in my life. And then we feel better about ourselves after that. But then I make no changes to anything in my life to fix the problems. I just talk about them and carry on. So it's like you're kind of half in, half out. You're like you're going to the doctor, but then you're not taking the medication. So it's like what are you doing? So that would be kind of the state that I was in around that 2020. That in hindsight should have took some time off before that, for sure. There's no question. How much time? I mean, I don't know how you decide that now, but should have took a break, like a real break, and gotten leveled out again. But I was not going to be that member. I was not going to take time off. The stigmas around it and my own thoughts about it. I was just would not do it, even though I knew I should have. So that's kind of where I was. Was drinking a lot, and it was like I don't drink anymore. I haven't drank in almost 2 years. But it wasn't like, oh, go and have a drink with supper. It was, if I was drinking, it was like 20 drinks because I could handle a lot of alcohol. And instead of just getting tired and going to bed like I used to, it was like you would just get amped up and keep going, and then just making terrible decisions. Hungover for 3 days and throwing up, and like it was just a mess, man. Like honestly, it was super unhealthy. Super not cool. And yeah, but it was definitely the internal struggle that's how it was showing. I just didn't give a shit. I didn't care about anything. I was like, well, if I get hit by a semi on the way to work, oh well. If I get killed in the shootout at work, oh well, at least my wife will get a bunch of money and whatever. Hopefully she can find someone else. That's genuinely where I was. So
that's leading into May of 2020. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's where you're at. And that all starts when? Was it sort of a slow progression post Athabasca? Or do you think it was like just a whole confluence of everything from, you started in Athabasca right through, or when did you notice that sort of change?
I think probably a slow build up throughout my whole career. I've been in general duty for, I guess it would have been 10 years straight at that point. Had one brief departure to a GIS secondment for like 3 months or something. But other than that, shift work GD for 10 years straight. I was getting better about not working as much, especially like after I got hold of my first Veterans Affairs. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Like I don't need to work as much overtime anymore. And I actually had cut back on that quite a bit. but still couldn't take the win, I guess. It was like, that was a win. Like that was a huge benefit to not have to feel the pressure of like, I need to go in, I need to work these overtime shifts. It could actually take a step away, but then didn't do anything to like benefit from that. So the last like probably 18 down into 2020 was probably the most notable like decline. I mean, maybe other people would argue that they saw it sooner. It's hard to say. But for my own self, it was that you could kind of feel it starting to come apart a little bit at that point.
Okay. So then May 6th, 2020 happens. Can you walk us through that? What happened? Your day starts like a normal day, I presume.
Yeah.
Or doesn't.
Yeah. So this is the beginning of COVID. You know, the world's on fire. No one knows what's going on. I wasn't taking it super seriously. I'm like, whatever. Like, who cares, man? Like, this is dumb, but whatever. Fine. I'll play your game. We had just went to we split our watch in half. So half was on call, half was working. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, this is actually a great deal. I'm all for COVID then, if this is the case, because I get to have every second week off. This is amazing. I was acting corporal, so this was going to be my first chance at long-term acting, like official, not a cover for a week or a weekend or something like that. Like I was going to be, it was going to be on Hermes, and it was like this was a good career progression thing for me. So I thought that was great. We just bought a new house, and so it was one of these stories that like I wasn't supposed to be working that day. That I had switched weeks off with the other corporal so that I could have 2 weeks off in a row, or 2 weeks of on call in a row, I should say, so that I could go and do my move, wouldn't have to take time off. And so we agreed. We changed weeks, and I'm sitting at my desk eating 30 old breakfast burritos from McDonald's. Gross. Haven't had them since. And I always tell everybody, it's just morbid, but you got nothing else to do but laugh about it, is that would have been the biggest travesty of this story had I not made it, is that my last meal would have been breakfast burritos from McDonald's. Like, what a way to go. That'd be horrible.
Kids.
Yeah, this is bad. So we get this call from Blackfalds, so just to the south of us, that there's been a shooting incident. We're not really sure what was going on at the time, but it's like a domestic. He shot up his house at somehow or another. Actually, still, I'm not 100% sure. The neighbor was hit by the gunfire, so I'm not sure if it like a ricochet or if he actually shot at her house. I don't know the exact details there. The members showed up. He had shot at the members, hit the PDS, hit the truck, which is actually the picture I think they used in the news article. Kind of skipped off the windshield because he was such distance. Members were okay, but that he had broke containment and he was on the loose. So I'm like, okay, well, I mean, so what? Like, this is 45 minutes away. Probably not going to come here. I'm not getting too worked up about it yet, because I'm like, well, they'll want to do surveillance, and if they can find him, they'll just wait till he goes to ground and scoop him at a gas station or something, and whatever. We're not going to get involved. Then the staff sergeant comes blowing out of his office, and he's like, they're tracking his cell phone. He's out on the highway. He's coming towards us. You guys got to get your asses out there. So I'm like, oh, okay. Let's get going then. Had a recruit at the time who had like 2 weeks service left in his RFT. So we're still pretty tight. Run out to the car, took my carbine out of the rack and just put it on the passenger seat. And he kind of looked at me funny, like, oh, that I didn't think of that. I'm like, well, I mean, if he's shooting at the members already, like, we probably want to be ready to go here. So like, be ready to go. I was like, I still don't think we're going to get involved in this, because, the highways, I mean, there's 100 places you can turn off and double back and all the range roads and everything else, but didn't put my HBA on. That was on purpose. And I know there would be people that argue with me on that, but I'm like, I can't move in that stuff. It's, over top of my vest. I can't get at my radio. I can't get at my mags. I can't get at anything. If I got to move fast, I'll take my mobility over the safety of this. And I know that there's obviously going to be a lot of controversy over that, and I quite frankly don't care. That was a decision that I made, and I was like, this is what I'm doing. Got out to the highway, and sure enough, underneath the overpass in front of us, well, there goes his car, and I was thinking a traffic member or a crew member, someone in an unmarked was following him. So I was in a marked PC. I stayed way back. I didn't want to get too close and spook him. The next exit up the highway, there's a bunch of members that unfortunately got spotted. They're marked PCs on the side of the road, and people are getting guns out and spike belts and getting kind of ready to go. And he sees them, realizes that we're onto him, and off we go. So I had texted my wife, told her I loved her. It's like, I don't know how this is going to go, but you don't want to be thinking about things unsaid. So sent the text, put my phone away, and then just basically stayed at the back of what they called in a pursuit, which I thought was fantastic because we're never allowed to chase anybody for anything. So this is great that we're going to have some fun today, and this is going to be some real police work for sure. Up towards Leduc, they had a spike belt out. They got all 4 tires. It's a fantastic spike. I think it was one of the sergeants at the time was out and got him, which is fantastic. I don't know if you guys have been in Alberta recently, but on Highway 2, they now have it's not guardrail, it's like the guard wire, I guess, that separates the north and southbound lanes. So this didn't get installed until like 2 weeks after this shooting, just weird timing, and crosses the median, and now he's on the wrong side of the highway, still going north. I crossed the highway behind him because all of a sudden I was in it. I thought I was, way out of this incident for a long time. And then all of a sudden I was like the second car in this pursuit. He gets up to the overpass for 2A, which is where you would exit to take the back way to go to Wetaskiwin, where I had come from. And they were talking about, does anyone have, can anyone do a TVIT, or is anyone trained in vehicle contact, or they were worried about him getting into Leduc. And I was like, nobody was at that time. Still not many people trained in that sort of stuff. It's only still in its infancy, of course. And I was like nobody can do anything here. It's like, we're going to have to just wait till he comes to a stop, which he was now slowing down. I had got my carbine over, put sling on, driving with my knee, and this is the things you think of after the fact that is like, it just seems so normal, but it's not at all. And I'm like checking my optic, make sure it's the dots turned up, and rack it and do a press check and make sure everything's good to go. And I know there's a lot of people use the word, muscle memory, and that you're just doing things robotically or doing things automatically. And I don't like to say those things, that it's a very intentional thing to do. I'm not doing it because I'm not thinking. I'm doing it because I am thinking. That's the whole point. And that I want to be ready to go. I knew that whatever was going to happen was probably going to happen super fast. He was either going to get it with his hands up. And I said to myself that if he does anything other than get out with his hands up and surrenders, I'm going to fucking shoot him. Plain and simple. Like, that's it. I don't have time to play this game, and I'll be damned if he gets me first. It ain't going to happen. And vehicle came to a stop, and I pulled in to kind of get an angle on it with the golf course in the background, unfortunately. Is like, sorry about the boys on the 10th tee, but it was that or it was into traffic, which is now like coming to a stop, which is obviously that's not a shooting lane for sure. And he came out with a 12-gauge shotgun and piled 2 rounds into my windshield as I simultaneously shot back, and we basically hit each other. The timing is, when I watch the video now, the timing is actually the hardest part to believe as to how close it is. I knew I hit him, at least as much as a person could know something like that, given what's going on. And I just remember kind of like laying in my seat, kind of half in like that, everybody kind of ducks into the middle where like the MWS and stuff is. And I remember stopping for a second and my head was just pounded and looking at the ceiling of my PC. And I'm like, what just happened? Like, I knew I fired a bunch of rounds and I didn't know if the concussion from the rounds like kind of gave me a concussion because I shot inside the vehicle with the windows up and closed, which was a mistake. I should have had them down. But I was like, my head hurts and I don't really know why. And I kind of had jolted for a second and I was like, well, I don't hear any more shooting. And there's a lot of cops here. So I think the shooting's done, but I feel like I'm hurting right now, but I don't really know why. And then I looked up at the mirror and I just remember seeing my own face and I was like, oh no, I am shot in the face. And my mouth hurt really, like I got punched right in the mouth and one of the lenses was gone out of my sunglasses. And I was like, oh shit, I got to get out of here and I got to get out of here right now because I'm not dying in this car. Like, no, I'll die later. That's fine. Maybe I'm already dead. I'm not sure, but I've never died before. So I don't really know exactly what it feels like. And we're just going to keep going until I can't. And we'll see where that ends up. Turned over to get rid of my carbine in the footwell. And there's just blood pouring everywhere. Because I mean, so many blood vessels in your face, like you just bleed like crazy. Ditched my carbine and then went out through the passenger side. I didn't want to jump out the driver's side because I knew, there's members behind me showing up on scene. And if the shooting's not done, I don't want to get shot in the back by my own guy. So out the passenger side we go. And then I guess we'll see what happens from there. So I ran around, I think someone come and grabbed me. We went to the back of the car. And there's just blood like pouring all over the place. It was crazy. And they're like, we got to get you out of here. They call for an ambulance. There's nothing but, still cars with their sirens on, sitting, like just total chaos. Alan Erickson, I'll never forget. Alan Erickson came around the back of the car and just like looked at me, and I'm sitting there with my hand on my head, blood all over the place. And this tooth is gone and I can't figure out what happened. And it just looked of pure horror on his face. I'll never forget it. And I was just like, I'm okay, man. It's all good. And like trying to make light of this still, even though I'm like very badly injured. The ambulance showed up and they're like, okay, we're going to bring a stretcher over. We got to get you out of here. And I was like, there is no chance that you are going to have me on TV getting wheeled out of here on a stretcher. I'll walk to the ambulance. Thank you very much. And then I'll go on a stretcher in there because I am not going to be on the media getting on a stretcher. No way. I need my phone. I'm not leaving before I get my phone because I got to call my wife who knows that something is up and is going to hear something is up very soon. And if I'm not the one that calls her to tell her that I'm going to the hospital, she's going to assume the worst. She's going to lose it. Jump in the ambulance. Off we go. We seem to be going very fast for a long time. And I'm like, Edmonton is only like 15 minutes from here. Like, how have we not stopped or like slowed down for a light or anything yet? And what it ended up being, which I think is the coolest part of the story, is that Edmonton Police Service had heard about the pursuit coming, but they were waiting on the south side of Edmonton for this to eventually get to them or not, or whatever the case is. Heard that there was a shooting and that I was injured, and they blocked off every single light the whole way to the hospital. So we didn't stop for nothing and just blew right to the emergency room. Super awesome and super cool. And I hope some of them see this or hear this because that is, like, to me, that's the highlight of this whole thing is just that was just such a cool thing for them to do. Got to the hospital and called Isabel on the way there. And she's like, what's going on? Because she knew right away. And I was trying to get my phone open, and it's like Face ID, like face not recognized, like, well, yeah, like no kidding. I don't recognize it either. So, put my password in, phone her, and it's like, hey, so crazy story. She's like, what's going on? Like, what happened? And I'm kind of like mumbling because my lips all swollen up and everything else. And I was like, so like, just don't panic. But, like I got shot and I got to go to the hospital, but I'll be okay. And she's like, where? Like, where did you get shot? And me thinking, information wise, I'm like, well, I'm in Leduc. She's like, I don't care where you physically are. I'm like, where did you get shot on your body, you idiot? And hindsight, it's like, well, yeah, I can see where that's maybe more of a pertinent detail. So we always have a good laugh about that. I was in the hospital for 3 days. They had to do a root canal. One of the pellets went up my nose and lodged in the back of my sinus cavity. They were super worried about that for a bit. Had to do a surgery to dig it out, get some stitches, in my finger. Did I get stitches? Yeah, a couple stitches in my finger, stitches in my lip and through the side of my cheek and everything else. They went in to get the one up my nose, couldn't find it, digging around, end up cutting the whole soft palate of my mouth. So if you can feel with your tongue, like right at the back of the hard palate where it switches to the soft palate, the whole thing was cut from side to side to go up into my sinus to get this pellet out. Still couldn't find it. So they re-x-rayed me like in surgery, and it had fallen out and I had swallowed it in the night. So that was the surgery that I didn't have to have had. Horrible.
Doesn't sound invasive though. At least it doesn't sound like that. Sounds like a pretty comfortable area to get sliced open and recover from.
Exactly. So I come out of surgery. It's like, yeah, surgery's good. Everything's good. Awesome. Great job. Give me some mouthwash because, some on oral surgery. So they're like, you got to keep your mouth clean, infection, all that sort of thing. And I go to like swish this mouthwash around and immediately gang it up all over the place. I'm like, why? Like, it's just my tooth. Like, you just had to stitch up my root canal. Like, it's not a big deal. And I got up and went in the bathroom and looked in the mirror, and like the whole roof of my mouth was just nothing but stitches. And I'm like, what did you guys do to me? Like, what the fuck is going on here? Why is my mouth cut from side to side? And then they tell me this, they explain, kind of how this all came to be. And, in the state that I'm in, I'm like, I'm not going to argue with them. Like, it is what it is now, and nothing you can do about it. Horrible, to say the least. Couldn't eat, chew, swallow, spit, cough, drink, like nothing for like 3 weeks.
New procedure, X-ray
right?
Before, ensure that the pellet's there in the future. Like, I think that's a new procedure at the hospital from now on.
Yeah, because I was not super high on the priority list, so I was in the hospital for 2 days, but before it was my turn finally, and yeah, they didn't recheck it before they went in and did that.
Were there injured firefighters that somehow got ahead of you? Like,
I'm not sure. Maybe it's hard to say.
We're kidding. Listen, medical people, we love you. You do a great job.
Yep.
Morgan's here, and but I'm sure that would have been. Yeah. Awful. I've had a few surgeries, none on the inside of my mouth. That would have been horrible recovery. Yeah.
They did a great job. Like, they did a wonderful job of the surgery that I didn't need to have, but it was, it was highly unfortunate. Made the recovery just that much worse. But I love that they're thorough. I mean, maybe they got some extra cleaning done or, whatever. Yep. So we'll just try to take it as a win. So I had no tooth. This guy here, fake. They did a great job on that too. Dental work now is unbelievable, but I didn't have a tooth for almost a year, so it looked real methy for a long time. The first time back in the office, a few months later, that people kind of looking at you funny, like I'm tattoos and this missing tooth, and you can almost see people that don't know me. They're like, is this guy supposed to be in the bullpen? Like, is this a cop? Like, the cell block's that way, buddy. Like, I don't know what you're doing out here. So pretty, luck. Well, that's the only benefit of COVID was that everyone's wearing a mask. So when I have a mask on, nobody can see. But when you don't, then it's super, super obvious. Mm-hmm. I was in the hospital. Yeah. So for 3 days, COVID restrictions, no visitors. they weren't even going to let my wife come in, see me in the ER. And I told them I was going to leave if he didn't. Like, I'll just get up and get out of here. Like, I don't care. So they let her come in just briefly. And they let one of the members that came in with me, they let him stay for that first like afternoon. And that was kind of it. A couple of EPS members snuck in somehow to say hi. I still don't know how they managed to pull that off. I think they were working. And they come by to say hello, which again, super awesome of them to do, because they're probably risking getting in some sort of trouble for doing that. But they wanted to come in anyway, which I thought was great. Then went back home after, finished my move, which was still mid completion at this point, and then that started my time off. So originally thought, oh, sweet, I'm going to get the summer off, take a couple months, and be back to work. And then realized pretty quick that wasn't going to happen. It's going to be a process. So
was there a moment then when the reality of what happened finally caught up to you?
I think so. Yeah, probably a few days after I got home, it was like, this really sucks. I don't like this. This is horrible.
What part, Morgan? Like what part of that was the part that you were like reflected on? This is horrible. Like, obviously there's physical pain. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on, and moving sucks. So maybe that contributes, like, all of it combined. But what was there something specific that you're like, this particular aspect of it right now is really sucks?
I think the physical part, to be honest, that, like I said, I was a avid gym goer. I really liked working out. Like, that was one of the only things that I guess I was kind of kept me moving in the right direction, or at least I felt it was. And I had a broken finger as well, so couldn't really do that. Couldn't eat properly, so I was hungry all the time. But you didn't want to rip the stitches and then risk having to redo this surgery on my mouth. Couldn't sleep. My whole sinus cavity just full of a massive clot, basically. So you're kind of dealing with that and blowing this gross crap into the sink all the time, and just honestly just feeling miserable, like some degree of a head injury, and it was just miserable, just in general.
We should clarify, Morgan had six pellets from a shotgun in his face and hand, one in the hand and 5 in the face. Is that right?
Yeah. There's a couple in my face that it's like, I can't tell if what it's actually caused from, but my best count is 5 total. So like the one that hit here, like hit and flattened out underneath. It was like a penny when
people say you have a thick skull,
they mean it.
You're the person they're talking about. You flatten out bullets with your forehead. So your mom was probably right growing up. 100%. Nothing gets through your thick skull, Morgan. Thank you for that, Mom. It's true.
Yeah. So like it dented, one of the pellets hit the barrel of the shotgun that was still in the car, and it dented the barrel. They had to replace it.
Wow.
So it was a big dent in the shotgun barrel. Like it hit freaking hard.
So I'm just trying to picture this. How far away are you from the client, the rat, whatever we want to call him?
A car length and a half, maybe.
Oh, so really close.
Yeah, super close.
Okay. And so he drops and it comes through the windshield straight on an angle?
Basically straight on. Like the basically like a traffic stop orientation of the vehicle. So straight on,
Okay.
Offset a little bit to the driver's side, but basically a straight on.
And so you are up with your C8, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
And you're popping rounds and then you say you kind of go down?
I think the going down part was just like from being hit, like it just hit and like you kind of fall to the side a little bit, and because you're stunned. But I basically, like, if I recall correctly, basically held the foregrip against the steering wheel. Like I grabbed the steering wheel and the foregrip at the same time to try to keep it steady. And then my rounds are going out and his rounds are coming in. Yeah. Damn near passing each other in the air. I swear it was that close.
It's like a boxing match, the super rare where they both hit at the same time and both get knocked out. It feels like that in a gunfight. And so I want to go back to that, to your preparation. And I think this is important for a lot of people is, so you had two things that I sort of triggered on. One is that your mentality was, unless he like immediately, so you're prepared, you're ready for what exactly happens, which is he comes out with a gun. So you, absent that preparation, have you gone through that in your mind? That preparation most likely saved your life. Like that piece of, had I not checked the optic, had the carbine slung, all of the things that you should do, right, in both physical and mental preparation. Had one of those not been the case, Buddy's uninjured. Does he have more rounds in his gun? Was that all he had?
I think that it was empty. If I recall correctly, he got because I think there was actually a third round that he shot like into the door. Someone said, I've never seen the pictures of it, but apparently there was a shot like into his door as he's coming out. You can't see it on the video, but that was the third round. And then the two remaining, I mean, it's one of those things that the amount of hours I'd spent driving around at night, thinking, well, what if this? And well, what if that? And like these kind of weird scenarios play out in your head. And I've always said that I think there's a fine line. Well, maybe not fine. There's a bit of a gray area between paranoia and preparation. Because paranoia is no good. You're just burnt out. You can't do that. You can't live like that. But then there's a high degree of preparation that any of us can have. That I think for me was probably getting to be bordering on the paranoia part, but I believe I kept it in the preparedness column to the best of my ability. And I just knew. I was like, I know where this is going. I know what the likelihood, doing the math in your head of like, what's the likelihood of this or likelihood of that? And based on what had happened up to that point, I was like, I think this is probably what's going to happen. And I was like, not today, buddy. And that to me, honestly, is the biggest part, that even as prepared as I was, with a gun out on the dash, ready to go, the only time it took me was literally to take the safety off. That's the only delay that I had. Didn't put it in park, just stood on the brake and stopped. He still got 3 rounds off, and he still got me.
Action versus reaction, right? Like it's unbelievable that no reaction is faster than the action, like ever.
No.
Yeah, super interesting.
Yeah, you having made that cognitive decision in advance of it, you didn't have to sit there and process. To Rob's point, right? Like with action versus reaction, I think most police officers know that because we instruct it. But for those who aren't police officers listening to this, it's cognitively understanding and making that decision like Morgan did in advance, saying, if this happens, this is what I'm doing. The mental math of it, not getting that information, interpreting it, and then deciding what to do. Half seconds, quarter seconds, a tenth of a second, that's your life in policing. And Morgan was ready as a result of mentally preparing, even taking in the situational factors, literally while driving down the street with his carbine getting slung, using his knee to drive, which I think every police officer can relate to. I think every police officer's done something similar to that. The difference being kind of what Morgan thought, like, I'm at the back, this is going to resolve. I'm probably not going to be involved in this, but he was. Right. Mm-hmm. And so huge on that mental preparation. And really, that's kind of, I'm sure, where you see it now with being in tactical training. You really take credibility when you're imparting these thoughts onto members. And so much of it, I assume you're PEPSIC as well as, yeah. So much of that program comes from people who have been there, and the people who are like, yeah, no, I'd just do this, or what if? Like, that was probably the most annoying question that I ever received as an instructor. What if? Well, you can what if all day, but you have to go through all of these scenarios at every given time. And I think that's one of the things that leads to OSIs with officers, to your point. Members have to what if everything all the time. Where's the door? What if they come out? What if they don't? And you're going to 15 different files a day as a primary. And then you're also backing members up. And you have to what if on your way to them while you're at them. Then you get a short window to report write, which all of us hate doing. So you probably will, before you're done report writing, take another call so that you can do something fun for a while. And all that time, you're building up all these scenarios. Yet all of them throughout that shift could be serious injury, could be death, could be where am I going to bail to? What if that happens? And day after day, and to your point, so a normal member works 2,087 hours a year, but you said you were doing OT all the time, right? And you're something that really hit me earlier is your metric for how good life was how good am I doing at my job right now? And I think that's something that so many police officers actually measure, but aren't aware. Like, I think people are like, my life's kind of falling apart in many areas. I think there's a meme of a dog holding a coffee cup and everything's on fire and he's saying, it's fine.
Yeah.
Like, that's policing, but you're like, as long as I can come to shift and I can do my job, everything's fine. Just all of this other world is a giant distraction to me while I'm policing, right? Yeah.
Yep. 100%.
So a couple things you wrote, we asked Morgan, as we do with people, to write a little bit of a background and what's going on. And you mentioned a couple things I want to kind of get into. So shooting's over and things aren't great right now. Mentally, physically, you're in a lot of pain, obviously. And there's world factors going on as well. And 2020, in a lot of my world, like the world was on fire. We were trying to do all sorts of just like our job had just started, right? So we're trying to negotiate a contract. We're doing all these things, but that had just got going, and we're in the middle of COVID. The U.S. is apparently burning every city. There seems to be riots all over the place. Anti-police sentiment is at an all-time high. In my world, at least, that's how it appeared. That a lot of the stuff down there, the Black Lives Matter stuff was there was lots of riots. Defund the police was, Colin Kaepernick was doing his things with his, anti-police socks, like everything was negative in that world at that point. And then you are also shot in the face. You're not the healthiest. You had just eaten some McDonald's breakfast as your last meal, right? So you're not in the healthiest position anyway.
Yeah.
So what happens at that stage? Because you had been, a good soldier. You're still going to work. You're still doing all your stuff, whatever. And then this incident happens. And at what stage was it like, I'm not going back after the summer? This is, so where are we at that point?
So it was a couple weeks after I got home. Got the move done in our new place. It was quite an upgrade from our old house. That we're still early in our like home owning careers. So, but it's like another big step up the housing ladder. So it's like we're super excited. That I started to really think like, oh man, like what does me going back to work even look like? Do I want to? Is that a good idea? Is this a good way to just be done with policing and just sail off into the sunset, or what? We get into this whole Black Lives Matter, defund the police thing, which obviously didn't hit us as hard up here as it did for the Americans. At least didn't seem to. I was pissed. I'm like, I'm sitting at home, my face all shot to hell. Dental surgeries, and I can't eat, and I look like a crazy person with this missing tooth, and there's still a big piece of lead in my upper lip that we never got taken out. That'll come up with my PHA one day probably, and they'll be like, "Why is your blood lead level so high?" It's like,
eat a lot of paint as a child.
Yeah, probably. Maybe that's why my head's sore. It's hard to tell.
Morgan and I aren't as old as you, where lead paint was a thing.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I dyed my beard gray. I'm actually 33.
Yeah, just aged horribly. But I was honestly furious with just everybody, with the public, with the politicians, with senior management of the RCMP in particular. That I'm sitting at home. All you have to do is sit at home, play video games, and read stuff on social media. That's literally all we can do. Everything's closed. You can't go nowhere. You can't have visitors. You can't do anything. And so I'm stuck at home in this like cyclical thing of reading the news. And you got Zablocki up there saying one thing one day, and then 2 days go by, and it's like, oh, just kidding. No, the police are racist. Because I got my PP whacked, and now I got to come out and say this.
This is Chief Adam. Chief Adam time.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember when that first article came out where he said, nope, like, I don't believe there's systemic racism in policing. Is there racist people? I'm like, well, obviously they're people. There's always going to be people who are racist in every profession, in every job, in every aspect of society. That's a stupid argument to make.
Yeah.
But to say that the police are systemically racist, like, I'm not racist. I'm not anything racist. Like, what are you talking about? And you get up there, and you actually get up there and like defended us. And I remember being like, that's unbelievable. Good for him. That's fantastic. What a pat on the back. It actually made me feel better for a day or two. And then 2 days later, ooh, yeah, so about that, I was misinformed or misrepresented or whatever. And yeah, that's true. And it's like, dude, you just made it twice as bad because
I don't know. I think I'm going to let you, I don't know if senior management understood how negative that was to all the men and women who do the job. Like to come out and basically say, and I know that the intent wasn't, you're all racists.
Yeah.
But for the people who are doing the job and literally putting their lives on the line, to then just be carte blanche told, well, systemic racism is pervasive through the organization, ergo Morgan must be a racist, even though he's at home right now having just been shot. But that's how it felt to the rank and file. That is 100% how it felt. And I don't know if we can get that through to the politicians and the senior management, that is how it feels when you're doing the job and putting your life on the line. That is how it feels.
Yeah, 100%. And so that is where, like I said in the thing I sent you there, like the resentment piece really started to brew big time. And then you have Brenda Lucky up there saying about how like the height requirements are racist and everything else. It's like, I had to look it up this morning in preparation for this chat. I was like, when did they actually get rid of the 5'8" height requirement? And it was in 1974. It's like, so what are we talking about here? I don't even understand what this argument is that you're trying to make by saying like that is your evidence of like me understanding, systemic racism in policing is a rule. Had nothing to do with race. It was a physical attribute.
Ironically, I would not be a member. I'm 5'7". Like I lit, and so
it's right? Like I was like so confused. I'm like, they're grasping. They're trying to find something that they can say, oh, look, see, I looked into it and I found this thing that is like racist, or it could be like twisted into being racist so that I can say I understand what the mob wants, even though it's total BS. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting at home on my couch, looking like I've been hit by a truck. Not that I don't look like that anyways, but even more so. And this is what I got to read every fucking day is some senior manager trying to protect their own butt by making these admissions on behalf of all of us, which includes the three of us. And it's like, who are you to say any of this? Who are you to speak for me on that in that regard, especially in a negative way? If you want to stand up for your members, that's your job. Stand up for your members. Otherwise, what are you doing here? But to sell us all under the bridge or down the river or whatever that saying is, in the effort to save your own political career or aspirations or whatever it is absolutely asinine. and is a dereliction of the very seat that they're supposed to be sitting in and the job that comes along with it. So I was absolutely furious. I can't remember which, it was a senior manager, and I can't remember what their name is, so I don't want to get it wrong. I won't say, but it phoned me at home. It's just like a check-in. I think it was someone from like Member Wellness or something like that. And they called, and I'll never forget it. I was sitting downstairs in my basement. I was playing Call of Duty because that's all there was to do. And she's like, oh, like, how are things going? How are you doing? And I was going to just fluff it off and be like, yeah, everything's good. Everything's been great and being helpful. No problem. And I was like, you know what? No, this is an opportunity where someone's going to hear what I think, and I'm going to tell them. And I said, actually, I'm not good. And here's why. And listed it all off. And to their credit, they were like, I don't disagree with you. Like, how am I supposed to argue with that perspective? With the seat that you're sitting in and what has just happened to you, and then to have to read all this every day, I 100% understand where you're coming from, which was actually nice to hear that at least somebody, would admit that they could see where I was coming from. But I basically, for a few months, I was like, well, best of luck ever finding me again, RCMP. I'll be in, Mexico somewhere, living my best life, and you can mail me my medical discharge in 5 years when you guys even remember I still work for you and I'm still collecting a paycheck, because I don't care. If you don't care about me, I certainly don't care about you. And see you later. I'm going to ride this to the end of the earth, and I'll peel everything, and I'll be the biggest pain in your butts in the entire world, just for me to feel like I have some sort of control. And I know the system just as well as you guys do. And I'm just going to take total advantage of it. And I don't care. And I felt that way for a while. Probably like 6 months. I was really big on the, like, you're never going to see me again train. But had a couple good members in Wetaskiwin that actually stayed in touch. I counted them up in the hospital. I had like almost 140 members or people text me. How are you doing? Is everything okay? Genuine concern, which was amazing. But then after a couple weeks, it's 20 people checking on you. And then after a month, it's 5. And then after 3 months, it's 2. And you feel forgotten about pretty quick. And I was like, well, that's what it is. Took one for the team, and I guess this is what I get, and that's all good. That's fine. Had to do a lot of thinking, like, well, why did I become a police officer in the first place? Like, why did I want to do this? Like, did I do this job and sign up for this career because I give a rep about what Brenda Lucky or Curtis Zablocki think of anything I've done? No, even know who they were. So why would I care about it now? Why am I going to start basing my career decisions based on that, when, like, they're so far removed from, like you say, the rank and file that, like, you almost can't even take it seriously. Like, you really can't. I was like, I didn't join the police force for them. I didn't become a cop for them. I didn't take a round for them. It was, the guys and girls sitting across the desk from me in the bullpen, BSing on night shifts and having funny stories and going to calls and being trauma bonded together from all the crap that we got to see. It's like, that's who I joined for. And it was for no other reason than that. And that's where I kind of had to start to reimagine maybe what the rest of my career would end up looking like. Found out about reintegration, thought it was a huge scam. I was like, I listen, fool me once, shame on me. This is going to be some sort of program where if I go and they take me shooting or whatever it is we do, and I do well, which I knew I would, they're going to say, oh, well, you're good to go then, and welcome back to work, or are you quitting? And that's what I figured the game was, that it was this big trap. So I put that off it was a few months, but my boss wouldn't let it go. It's he's pretty adamant on the whole thing. He's like, you're not going to get away with it.
Just curious, what rank, when you say your boss, like NCO rank? Staff sergeant? Okay, great, thanks.
That he was like, no, it's not like that. He said, talk to your psychologist, like, tell him what it's about. It's just to answer some questions if you have any, just a literally reintegration into, like, your old job. because you've been out of it for a while. And if you still don't want to come back to work, I was like, that's fine. If you want to quit, go deliver Amazon packages, that's fine. But he's like, I don't want to see you have to carry on without answering questions that you had. Like, I wanted to know, like, did my rounds hit him? Like, was it effective? Did I shoot a high-powered rifle off in the middle of friggin' Leduc and it didn't even work? And I failed. I hadn't even considered that for almost the first year. And then all of a sudden one day I'm like, oh my God, what if people have just told me things that I want to hear to, make sure I don't spin off on the whole thing, and it's actually a lie. So we went through, I talked to the lead investigator from ACERT, fantastic individual, super helpful. Obviously can't release any specifics and can't get into too much detail, but he's like, if there's things that you want to know, I can help you out as best I can, if that will help you sleep at night. And I said, yeah, I want to know the answer to this question. Was it effective? And he said, well, if that's something that's important to you, then when the results of this all are officially released, whenever they're done, he said, you'll be very comforted by the results. And I was like,
and we can say now.
Yep, it's all done and released and everything's good, and that I had fired the fatal round.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
And to not know it 4 years later, which is how long it took them to clear it, to know it, a year and a half later was immensely helpful, because it was just off my plate of things to think about. And then that was kind of through reintegration, the connections that people have, and they know who to talk to and who to get the information from, that it's accurate and that it's like above board and everything. So that was super, super helpful. I did my reintegration. We set up my shooting again and shot through glass, and I was like, oh, all right, well, I can see it from my own eyes. Live, not scientifically, like in some sort of abstract, thought experiment of like, well, it should have worked, and there's no reason why it wouldn't. It's like I can see with my own eyes that I've done it live in person on a range, not being shot at this time, and then I can get the answers to those questions.
And for those, so those who aren't in our world exactly, reintegration is a program, relatively new program, and kudos to your staff sergeant. We need more people like he or she who encourage and don't take the first pushback as the end of the conversation, because it is a great program. But it's a program in that's to assist people who have been off for any number of reasons. It's not all shootings; it could be a number of different reasons, to help them in whatever manner, really, reintegrate into the organization, and it's very successful. One of the most successful programs I think I've seen in 25 years. So really good. So I just want to give the context a little bit about what we're talking about.
So yeah, went through my own reintegration. So I think that was October 2021. So it'd be like a year and a half later, go through my own reintegration. It was very, like I said, really good experience. Went really well. And it was kind of like, okay, well, now what? Like, what am I going to do now? And I've got this information. I had started GRW at that point, just reviewing domestics. So just plain clothes in the office, like 2 or 3 days a week type of thing. Went for my reintegration, got that kind of done. It was basically almost a one and done. Like there's some really specific things that I wanted to know, and then I was prepared to move on from it. I got asked, I guess it would have been like that following January, if I would do like a presentation on a reintegration facilitator course, as to like my incident and, my experience with reintegration, as like a guest presenter to the next course. And I was like, okay, sure. It's like, I don't really do public speaking, so I'm not sure what you guys are hoping that you're going to get out of me here, but I will absolutely wing it, and I will hopefully give you what you want. So I went and did that. Went pretty well. The first one was a bit rough. It was just to get the feel for like how it should be explained out there. Showed my video and talked about it, took some questions and everything else. And that was a really good experience as well, that I had always said kind of along the way that I think a good metric for how healed I am would be whether or not I can talk about this to like basically strangers. And if I can do that, then I think that would be a pretty good baseline for me. Okay, I think we're good then. That there's not things that I don't want to talk about or can't talk about that I really wanted to be able to just throw it all out there, and it wouldn't be a huge deal. And that if I could do that, then that would be how I was going to say whether or not I was better, I guess you could call it. End up through the reintegration program, I went on a VFI course. And that was my first time back in uniform since my shooting. Had to dig my uniform out of my garage because I hadn't been in it, in 2 years or whatever at that point. There's still like dried blood on my boots because I had never cleaned them and stuff. I'm just like, oh God. It's like, I should probably clean these before I go into Cative because that's ridiculous. But then that was when I realized I'm like, no, I miss being uniform. Like I worked my ass off, moved out west by myself to get this job and to get this uniform, be able to wear it. Like, I don't think I'm done with it yet. So then my goalpost shifted to like, I want to be operational again and I want to go back to GD. I can't leave it like that. I can't let that be the end of the story because I think that will be, I don't know if anyone else would care. Not that that makes a difference, but to me, I would just feel that, okay, well, you took it to the absolute max, got in a shooting, shot and killed somebody, almost died, and then that was it. And I was like, that can't be my last day at GD. That can't be. It's just not acceptable to me. And that was what I worked on for that summer. Got back to full duties, full hours, O2. Went into CPVS. So, general duty job. It's just no shift work. Go to calls and help the guys out and go do whatever. And yeah, did an assignment back to Beaumont. This what year was that now? 2023. So back to actual shift work, on call and everything else, and then took a transfer to TTS here 2024. So
that's awesome. That's quite a journey back there. And want to ask, so you had a pre-established relationship with a psychologist out of Edmonton. You still do now.
Yep.
How did you find that helpful that you had? Because we talk pretty regularly about whether it's attachment visits or wherever I'm talking to people. I often suggest, and I think Chris does the same, is set up that relationship early because you don't know when it's really going to matter. And maybe it's going to matter forever and you won't have a major incident like yours, but you'll have a series of bad incidents as a cop. You're going to have bad incidents. But that having that pre-established relationship will be helpful when you need it. So I just want your thoughts as someone who's been through that. Are we giving sound advice, I guess? We're giving it, so hopefully we're not completely off base.
Yeah. No. That was one of the biggest things that I could have ever done. I think it was, I already had a regular visit scheduled. I think it was for like the 15th or something of that May. So it was like a week and a half later after the shooting. He had already heard about it and knew kind of to some degree what had happened. And I was fortunately scheduled to see him anyway. And that it was like the pre-existing relationship and not having to come in and be like, okay, so tell me about your childhood and what's your relationship like with your mom? And like that whole like base layer, which is super important, 100%, like needs to be done. But that to already have the foundation there and be going to with some regularity and have that relationship ongoing was immensely helpful. Totally hit the ground running. I can't recommend it enough.
So after the injuries, the surgeries, the resentment, the oversight investigation, the reintegration, and then you move into training. When you look at the next member, like the next generation coming up into policing, no matter what force it is, what's one thing you would want them to understand before they face the worst day of their careers? What are things they should focus on?
It sounds cliche, but the complacency thing is like you can't really overstate it. And I would say one thing that the the term or the phrase "worst day of someone's career," a lot of people use that, and I certainly understand why. But like my shooting isn't my worst day of my career, and I think, and this is not to like push back on what you're saying, but bit of a devil's advocate, I would say, is that I think referring to it as the worst day of your career, especially when you're talking about like a future tense of this could happen, I think it, to me anyway, creates like an anxiety towards it of like, oh my God, like this thing is maybe going to happen to me and it's going to be the worst day ever and it's terrible and it's awful. And it very well might be. It could be for sure. And in a lot of cases it will. But for me, it wasn't. There's things that have affected me mentally more. And that I think my advice to members would be to, even though it could be the worst day of your career, that it doesn't have to be, and that instead of looking forward to it in a way of like this life or this incident is going to happen to me. I think to me personally that I never wanted to feel like a victim of like this thing happened to me and I had no control over it and I just had to sit here and take it. Um, to me, I felt defeated by that mentality, and that I wanted to look at it and be like, no, listen, whoever thinks they're going to take a shot at the title one of these days, they'd better have their best day, because it ain't going to be my worst because I'm still here. And that is how I choose to look at it. Now, obviously, that's just how I look at it. There's many perspectives, and none of them are right, none of them are wrong. It's just how people want to see it. But that to me is that you look forward to it with like uh, preparedness, and that I have taken my training seriously and I've taken my preparation seriously, and that when that big test shows up, I'm going to be ready for it and I'm going to be fine. And that it doesn't have to be the worst day. So that would be my perspective on it. And that's what I tell members all the time. That we do, I have many criticisms of the RCMP, many criticisms that I'm sure we all do. But our training, I have never found our training to be bad. That there's parts of it that I don't necessarily agree with, or maybe the procedure for doing certain things. But I think overall, I think our training is not bad. That do we get enough of it? No such thing as having enough training. It'd be nice if there was. But we're finally getting our new pistol. That's exciting. We want to look at that within a positive attitude of like, finally, things are modernizing, and yes, it's super slow, and yes, it's terrible, and it shouldn't take this long to get blue shirts, of course. But to look at it as anything other than positive, I think it's just us that suffers for it. It's not the white shirts. It's not the people in Ottawa that are super detached and removed from all of it. It's not them that suffers. It ends up being us, the frontline people, and the people still in wearing gray shirts and that type of thing. And that I think it's extremely important to take the wins where we can get them. And that, so one of the wins would be our carbine. I think that is a great weapon. It has a good optic, a really good optic. It's like a $1,200 piece of equipment. Like they did a good job of putting that gun together, and it saved my life. And so it's like, yes, even though there's a ton of things that can be a downside, that is one thing that is not, and that I try to remind myself of that sometimes, that it's really easy to forget that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's a great message to sort of end it on. That not a negative, a bit of a positive, and complacency obviously is not a positive. Try not to avoid that. I think we all need to do that in every job. I don't care whether you're frontline or whether you're a steno. It doesn't matter what your job is. Complacency is not a good thing in any of those. And love your message. Thanks so much. I'm going to be stopping the recording, but just want to say again, Thanks so much, Morgan. That was fantastic. Chris, anything you want to add?
No, respect, man. Really, the mentality that you come at policing with, and also that you've left that incident with, right? I wish and hope that a lot more members get to hear this and can adopt it, because the way that you approach policing before, but also now, like those realizations, I think it's much like we said before, like so many people told us things when we were young. It's like, I wish I had listened to that. Well, sir, you had some very sage things to say, and I hope people take that away.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys very much for having me on. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And it says stopping.